Hi, Sachin. Thank you for joining. And Sachin Sharma from London, life and business coach based in London, and have been coaching since 2016, and also the creator of the LAMRON Intensive, which I'm very curious about, and my audience definitely will be curious about to understand what LAMRON is and stands for. And some of the biggest milestones in your life, which I learned about you, Sachin, are that you cured yourself of your mental illness without a traditional therapy, which you have been helping others, and you coached about 100 people for free. I think following that, and you hit your 20K followers on Instagram in 2019 before starting again. And then in 2020, you reached six figures in revenue within third year of coaching. And 2022, I think there were two significant things. You created and sold your first sold out, business retreat and intensive. And the most important one, 2022, your relationship with your parents has transformed completely. And I think this has something I would like to connect with one of your posts after the Ultimate Experience India, where you wrote that one of the biggest and most meaningful achievements in my life to this day has to be taking my parents to India with me to meet the Ultimate Coach family. And I would love to listen more about that. But before that, how are you connected with the being movement? How did you move, man? Like, where did the story start? And I would love to listen a lot from your journey.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the great introduction. I see you've done your homework.
Yeah.
Um, wow, what a question. So first of all, thanks for having me. And the way I got connected with this was in 2017. I read The Prosperous Coach, and I heard Steve and Rich talking about Steve Hardison, and he just sounded like he kind of sounded like how I wanted to be as a coach. So later on, I think it was 2021, I was living in Mexico, and I was talking to my coach Ankush about what I wanted to do next, and I'd said I wanted to work with Steve at some point, and he said, "Well, why don't you start talking to him? Why don't you get a conversation going and see if that's actually something you want?" Which was a great idea. And I'm a very LAMRON individual. LAMRON is the word normal spelled backwards. I don't do things by how people would reasonably expect. I'm not trying to. It's just I've noticed it over the years. I'm not. I don't do things in a conventional manner. So the first interaction I had with Steve was I just messaged him out of the blue. I said, "Hey man, can I ask you a question?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Why do you choose to do monogamy with your wife?" And he said, "This isn't really something I would talk about over text. Why don't you call me?" So I called him. And at the time, I was in a open relationship. I was being polyamorous with my girlfriend. And I was having a great time doing it, to be honest, bro. And then after
Mm.
20 minutes on the phone with Steve, I lost interest in being in an open relationship. And he didn't try and convince me not to. He didn't tell me it was a bad thing. He just talked to me about his experience being in a monogamous, committed relationship with his wife. And something really resonated with me. And around that kind of time, over the next few months, I had this enormous shift happen in my life where family became important to me. And before that point, it wasn't really like I was living this kind of life where it hit me in July that year around my birthday. I have everything I've always wanted, and it's still not enough. What am I missing? And this really forced pushed me into the direction of family is important. And I cut my travel time short. I came back home and I stayed with my mom and dad again. And I just chose to work on our relationship, which sucked at the time. We couldn't really spend a lot of time together without arguing or just silly little bickering, whatever.
Mm.
So that's really like the shove in the how I got connected with being, because who I was being with my family is who I was being across the board in my life, but I didn't really see it. I didn't really
Mm.
understand it until like things started to click. Like, if I'm treating my mom like that, I'm treating me like that, I'm treating clients like that. it's all different variations of the same way of being. Is the long answer to your short question.
Yeah, fantastic. But can you take me, Sachin, like what could have triggered, or was that an insight or just an expansion of the experience of the conversation that you had with Steve about the marriage, or was there a specific insight that moved you towards your family, uh, towards working towards it?
Yeah, it was my favorite drug, commitment.
Mm,
It's my favorite word now. You know, like I have a line in my document, I'm the personification of commitment. And back
mm,
then, I wasn't being committed in the relationship I was in because
wow.
it was an open relationship, right? Steve talked to me about commitment. I think we made an agreement at the time that I wasn't going to share what we talked about. So
Mm,
I'm not going to share the exact words. And I will say, commitment was something that was non existent in my life. I wasn't committed to my health. I used to smoke weed every day. And I thought it was healthy. Yeah, just so you get an idea of how I was living back then.
mm,
I wasn't really committed to exercising. I wasn't really committed to anything. And I just saw
mm,
this massive commitment gap. Like, oh, okay, if that's how I'm being with this relationship I'm in, I think that's going to be how I'm being with my business. And it looks like, no, I'm committed to my business up here, but my relationship here. But the
mm,
insight I got was, no, it's all the same. It might look different, but it's showing me that there's higher levels to go across the board. If this is how committed I am with my mom and dad to have this kind of relationship, I could change that commitment level and I could have a different type. And it really hit me like I'm not committed to anything. I'm being very selfish and I'm just kind of floating through life trying to have the outside world satisfy me. Like
mm,
at the time I was really like yearning for the validation of people. I want women to like me. I want men to want to be like me.
mm,
And you know what the funny thing is, Ranjan? At the
mm,
time I had it all those things I thought I wanted, I was getting them and it still wasn't enough.
mm,
I would have young men message me on Instagram, I want to live the way you're living.
mm,
I would go on dates and, women would say, yeah, like, I want to be with you and stuff. And it still wasn't enough. I know the craziest thing is, bro, after I sorted out my relationship with my mom and dad and keep looking in that direction and fulfilling that side of my life, I have lost interest in basically everything that I was interested in before. I'm
mm,
not really interested in dating. Like, I would like to have a meaningful relationship at some point. I'm not really interested in like, showing off, which I was doing a lot of. You could say I was being a fake guru at the time.
mm, yeah. Mm. Sachin, this reminds me of a very meaningful conversation that I and my dad had just a couple of days ago. And when I was interviewing Rose Latham for my last video, uh, you know, I was about to share this, but we didn't get time enough. And I think this is the right time. I feel like sharing this. And something really shifted in my relationship with my mom, who passed away 2 years ago. And then, the ultimate experience and the being movement, Steve Hardison, and so much was shifting in my life. But on the other side, I see that my relationship with my dad has been improving a lot. And on the impact of this, or I don't know what, mysteriously, my dad also is not the same again now, and the way he is treating my child is so different now in the last few months. uh, at one point, like, I think we were having this conversation about 4 5 days ago, I believe. And I was asking him that why, because my growing when I was growing up, I never saw my dad. He was committed. He was good, but he was never able to express his love uh, to us as kids, and he would do everything. But then we never saw his expression of his love towards us or positive feelings towards us. And I am seeing that now, him doing that now with my kid. And when I asked him, like, why are you so different? Why are you not, if even for us, for any mistake or anything that my child does, he just doesn't get angry. I mean, he was very angry man as a young man, but I don't see any traces of that anger in him, and so much of love. And we were having this conversation, and he said, you know what he said? That, see, these are the last years of my life. And I am realizing that who I am being now is creating beautiful memories for your child. And you know what? I am not, I'm not just being a grandpa for him. I'm actually being his mom. I'm actually being his grandma. That means my mom. And I'm also being a grandpa. But beyond that, you don't know that in your absence, I'm also being you for him at home. I was blown away by this insight that what all is possible as a person to change. And you are very much right. Last few months, and especially last few days, I am going deeper and deeper into my healing my relationship with my own family members. And I see this is impacting everything about my life. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, uh, Sachin. And Sachin, so I would love to know this conversation with Steve, the impact that it had and still has on your relationship with your family. How has this been impacting you as a person and everything about you? Like we were talking about business, we were talking about your life, your personal life. So, how has this been impacting now, and what are the results that you see uh, in your life?
Thank you. It's hard to put into words, but what I'll say is I'm very fortunate to be being coached by some of the best coaches in the world. So Steve, yeah, I've had a session with him. I'm going back to work with him later on this year. I've got Ankush. We've been coaching for almost 3 years now, a better part of 3 years. None of the conversations I've had with Steve, or none of this would have happened without my continual commitment to being coached. Because insights are great, but when I discuss them with Ankush, I get to actually see what the implications are in the rest of my life. So we rarely talk about business. What I really talk to my coaches about is show me where the gap is. Show me
Mm,
who I'm being and who I want to be. Where's the gap? So I mean, it's um it's a really funny thing because I said to Ankush when I came back from Mexico after having that conversation with Steve, I was really angry. I was annoyed because um, I couldn't I couldn't put my finger on what was gonna satisfy me. I remember asking him one day, like, "What's the point? What's the point in me having a business? What's the point in me making money? What's the point of me doing anything I'm doing?" And
mm,
I just got more and more frustrated until I saw what the conversation was actually pointing at. For me, the only point of any of these things is a couple of things. Like, number one, the only point of acquiring material wealth is not for having the stuff, it's for who I get to become in the process of acquiring it. And I get to enjoy that. And the other thing is relationships are that's what makes life worth living. Like, I get to enjoy myself. That's a relationship with me, and then I get to enjoy the relationships I have with other people. And having this as the focus of my coaching, it really forced me to get in touch with some stuff that I was just blind to. Like, I was really blind to how much I was judging myself. I was blind to how much I had this hierarchy of, like, oh, I can't talk to this person because they're up here, and I can't talk to that person because they're down there. Or what would it mean about me if they achieved more than me because I see them as lower or higher? Which is really crazy to say out loud, but it's really, like, it's how it was. It's how I saw the world. It was my worldview because that's how I saw me. So the impact of these conversations have been that I find myself not judging, really. I mean, I think everyone does to an extent. I don't know. I'll only speak for myself. It's a lot less. Let's say it was up here before, it's like down here now. And it keeps getting less. I say my document twice a day. And it's a really strong place for me to come from to go into the world. And when I'm coming from that place of being my document, um, I've noticed such a tremendous difference. People who would never have considered working with me a year ago, 6 months ago, are asking me, hey, what does it look like for us to do this? And, that's not just a business thing. That's happening everywhere. Women that I was interested in before who never would have even bothered talking to me about anything other than like, how's the weather? They're like, oh yeah, I'm seeing something in you, Sachin. It looks like you're not just some crazy guy who's got a lot to say. Maybe there's actually something else there. And this is also happening with my mom and dad. Like they're seeing me as their friend, and before they used to see me as a liability. And I'm not insulting myself or them.
Yeah.
It was how I was being at the time. I was very self-centered. I didn't care about anyone except for myself. And now they're
Mm.
seeing me as someone they can hang out with. I just came back from the men's retreat that Ankush hosts in the immersion.
Mm.
And I spent 2 days with my mom and dad afterwards. Not because I had to, not because I should, because I genuinely wanted to just hang out with them. We watched some movies, we ate some food, we chilled with our dogs. What this conversation, what the being conversation has given me is a whole different life. I just hung out with some of my friends yesterday, right? We're all like, one of them's 26, the rest of us are 30. And, they said, do you want to come out with us tonight? It was like 8 o'clock, the event started. I said, maybe I'll stay until 10 and then I'm going to go to sleep. And one of my friends said, yes, guys, Sachin's in a very different state. He's in a very different phase of his life. We're in the let's go out and we want to do all of that, and he's focused. The word he used to describe me was focused, and it was
Mm.
really funny. Afterwards, I asked him, why did you use that word? He said, because nothing we're doing interests you, but everything you're doing is what you wake up for. And I was like, ooh, I like that. I think that's cool. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what it really is.
Wow. Sachin, two things we would love to learn from you because 2022 has been a very significant year in your life because of your change of your relationship with your family. And I see that uh, again, something that you are really proud of and you're really happy about is your journey to India, to the ultimate experience, India, with your family. But before that, I see that you are commitment and you are living from commitment. So how does uh, can you show us like what did commitment look like for you? How did you take this journey of executing your being of commitment, and then how did it grow into your experience with your family, finally to the ultimate experience, India?
Well, I guess it started off with, I looked at my current level of commitment and I was ashamed of it. I
Mm.
was like, wow, look at how I'm behaving. My only commitment is to feeling good or like pleasure seeking, and it's not nice. Like, it's not nice to get a look at something that you don't like about yourself. It doesn't feel nice. But it was like a big slap in the face. You know, I like this thing from Werner Erhard. He said, to get a good, strong, authentic look at yourself and not deviate into the world of feeling better about it, just to stay there and get a good, strong look, is it can be the start of a massive change. And that's what it was for me, man. Like, I've got a good look at how selfish I was being, how rude I could be, how judgmental, and I just didn't like what I was seeing. So I wanted to know what was missing. What was it? What was I missing that would help me to make these changes? And then I started seeing it like, I'm not missing any information. I know, don't judge people. I know, don't have this higher and lower stuff. it still looked true to me. So the thing that I was missing, well, a couple of things. One, distinctions around thinking. What is thought and what is objective reality? And that just blew the whole, like, that's what Ankush is a specialist in. It's what Keith Blevins specializes in. Bunch of other coaches who are in the three principles conversation. And I could say the same for Devin Banderson, Steve Hardison, a bunch of people who are on different sides of the same conversation. And then the other thing was commitment. So once I saw that, okay, in objective reality, this is who I'm being, and it doesn't have to have judgment. If I commit to being different, I will be that. And this is my current level of commitment. It's showing me this is who I'm committed to being. Cool. That can be changed if I want it to be. Doesn't have to be. It could be. And then it started off with small things. So like I committed to cutting my time in Mexico short. I just came back to England instead. I chilled with my mom and dad. I chose committed to staying in their house, even though I was running a 6-figure business. I was like, no. I'll do the Indian thing. I'll stay with my parents. And my dad was happy. He's like, yeah, save some money, business, whatever. But the reason, and people would ask me, I had a mentor ask me, he said, Sachin, I'm a bit worried about you. I said, yeah, why? He goes, you're living with your parents and you're like almost 30 years old. Like, why? And he didn't think it was a cultural thing. He goes, I know other Indians don't do this. Well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, yeah, I'm committed to doing the deepest work on myself possible. I'm committed to doing the work in my own four walls of my own home. And I didn't like it at first. It sounds cute. It makes me sound like a good kid. I didn't like it at first. It was horrible. I was getting confronted every single day with things that I didn't like about myself, disguised as things I don't like about my mom and dad, disguised as things I judge them for. Oh, they're not as conscious. Yeah. They don't get it. And I had when and then going on. When you get this, then I'll love you more. When you admit the mistakes you made as parents, then I'll forgive you. It's all just examples of how I was judging me. And that's why this was like the hardest level of commitment I'd ever faced, because I was coming every day deeper in touch with stories, like, oh, I am this way because this happened when I was young. I had to drop that. I didn't, it's not like I had to, like someone was forcing me. If I want a good relationship with my mom and dad, blame doesn't exist. You messed up when I was young doesn't exist. It's your fault doesn't exist. Dude, it was hard. I've really grown with those stories. That's who I was. I'd create an identity around that being my story, and to drop it was just like, yeah, it was difficult, man. I remember like every week sometimes I would have the same conversations with Ankush, and I'd give him massive credit because he was patient with me, he was loving with me, and he never judged me during the whole time. And we just kept looking in the same direction. And he kept saying to me, Sachin, I'll give you all the acknowledgement and respect in the world. Most people don't choose to do this. And then our relationship was steadily improving because I kept dropping more of this stuff. And when I told them that, they asked me one day, like, why aren't you blaming us for anything? Like, what's happened? And I'd had a lot of conversations with Keith Blevins as well. And he just kept pointing me in the direction of, this is a story, this is objective reality. This is a story, this is objective reality. And having those distinctions around thinking allowed me to see my parents with love. And no matter what they've done or haven't done, I can still come back to that place. As there's a story of this kid who was in India. They were on a train, and he was punching his mom, and the police arrested him. And she said, don't press charges. That's my son. There's an unconditional love there. And I felt like the same kind of thing with my mom and dad. Like, I grew up with a real hard time, man. Like, I was around pedophiles and child molesters. It was not fun. But I can be cool about it now. Like, I don't think it's something to joke about. And at the same time, I don't have anything on it. I don't have anger, resentment, guilt, shame, blame, all that. I don't have it. Even if I was to see these people again, in 2017, when I was just getting into coaching, when I was just starting all of this stuff, I was still in the back of my mind meditating on, shall I kill these people who hurt me when I was a little kid? Because that's how I felt about me. The exact judgments I had of them, they shouldn't have done it, whatever. I was blaming myself internally. Oh, I should have done more. I should have, whatever, right? And all of that over the period of a year, roughly 18 months or so, started dropping away. So then I said to my mom and dad, I remember I called my mom at the end of 2022. I said, hey, do you want to go to India? She's like, yeah, I'd love to. She didn't know about the ultimate experience. She goes, oh, but your dad's not going to take 2 weeks off work. I was like, don't worry about that. Let me figure it out. So I booked our tickets. I booked the plane tickets, and I sent a screenshot to my dad. I was like, hey, book some time off work. We're all going to India. And the first thing he said was, I'm running a business. Don't you care? Like, I've got stuff to do. I'm like, no, come on, let's go. And within 24 hours, we made it happen. And it was like, I said this recently to a client of mine. I'm committed to these things like I'm committed to breathing. Now, that's not a hardcore thing. I'll tell you why. Breathing happens on its own. It happens without us thinking about it. So if that's my level of committing to something, I'm not really thinking about how does it happen, how do I get it to work. It's just gonna happen, and that's it. It just takes care of itself because that's my commitment. So yeah, man, that's really how we ended up in India. And dude, I'll be honest with you, I used to really resent our people. I used to hate the fact that I was Indian. I used to like try and hide it sometimes. And the more and more of this judgment that's dropped away, the more pride I take in it. And I told my mom and dad about you, about Alok, about Ankush, about Steve. And I said, this trip, yes, it's a family holiday. Great, we're going to have a good time. But this is about you guys understanding who I'm around and who I'm inspired to be because of who these guys are being. Wow. And they had so much praise to give to everyone in the room after meeting everyone. And it was a gift that I wanted to give to my mom and dad. We've been through a lot as a family. We've been hurt a lot by our own family. I said, well, we don't have those people in our lives anymore. Meet our new family. And that was the gift I wanted to give them. And it was worth, I can't put an accurate thing on it, but it meant the world to me.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sachin. This means a lot to me, and I'm honored to listen to your story and your connection, your commitment with your family, because you know that, I committed to create this ultimate experience as a tribute to my mom, and I wanted my family to be there. I wanted my dad to be there. I wanted my kids to see what's happening, and I wanted, to create this as a legacy to my kids. And this was all about healing my relationship with my family. And I'm honored to have you on this conversation, where we speak about what's possible when you're committed, when you come from commitment. And you are the biggest example of being commitment. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sachin, and anybody who has to learn about what's possible over a period of time when you come from commitment. And when you are committed, there are many different areas. It's not just one, and business is not separate from your family life. If one can understand that, then probably there's no way you're thinking of work-life balance and all these things, because this all is one. We are all living in an energy field, and it's important where we are coming from. And I'm still amazed at knowing how even the smallest of the conversations with Steve Hardison can bring shift in who you are being. And you are an amazing result of this conversation. Congratulations, first of all, for being courageous to reach out to him and having this conversation. And finally, we are here talking to you, and the experiences that we are sharing through the ultimate experience, through your presence and all our presence from the ultimate experience, India. Thank you so much, Sachin. Thank you for sharing your experiences.
Thanks, Ranjan, and thank you for putting on such an event and really committing the way you did. If you can give me one more minute, I'd like to say.
Absolutely, sure. Yes.
I've never been a part of something like what you created. And I know it wasn't just you, but we're here, and I want to speak to what I was seeing in you. I was just seeing that unwavering commitment, and I know it wasn't easy. I know it took a lot to put this event on, and I have no idea what you went through, and at the same time, I know what it would have demanded of you to become a completely different person in such a short window of time.
Yes.
I really, I spoke very highly of you to my mom and dad, when after we came back from the event, they said, "Yeah, it really shows. This isn't just something that you try and get people in a room and try and give them something. This was something made out of love." And for my mom and dad, they haven't been in this conversation before. And to me, it was a testament of what your commitment was to create this from that place. It was, people could even being that inspiration for me, because that's what I want to do. I want to do all things with love, be powerful, rather it be a choice. But thank you for being an example of that in my life. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sachin. It means a lot to me, and I'm learning more and more uh, on receiving acknowledgement. And I read a post on your Facebook as well about receiving acknowledgement, and I'm still learning a lot from the conversation that we had. Thank you so much for joining, and I receive your acknowledgements into my heart. Thank you so much. Thank you.